Hello guys and girls, and welcome back to another episode of Seb Talks Sports, sponsored by Hoopin and Luton, the place to go to for your favourite new and vintage jerseys and apparel from all things basketball. That intro music and podcast theme was created by All-Pro New York Giants running back, now music creator and friend of the show, David Wilson. Go and check him out on all of his social media platforms at Fourstone Running on Twitter and Instagram, and his music under David E. Wilson across all good music streaming services. He's free for business, so drop him a message if you want some beats for your podcast, adverts, commercial, absolutely anything you need. Before I get into this episode, I just want to say that if you're not already following Seb Talks Sports across all platforms, then please do. You can find me on Facebook, Seb Talks Sports, YouTube, Seb Talks Sports, Twitter at Seb Talks Sports, and Instagram, where I'm primarily active. Again, it's at Seb Talks Sports. Today is a very special episode of Seb Talks Sports because I've got my first ever rugby guest on the show, and what a player he was. One of the greatest rugby league players of all time, scoring over 500 career tries and achieving countless honours throughout, to now being forever immortalised in a bronze statue outside of Wembley Stadium where he scored that famous try in the 1994 Challenge Cup final. It's of course the brilliant Martin Chariots Offiah MBE. Enjoy! My guest today is one of the greatest rugby league players of all time. A 7-time championship winner, 6-time Premiership winner, 4-time Challenge Cup winner, and Rugby League Hall of Famer. It's an absolute honour to welcome Martin Chariots Offiah MBE to Seb Talk Sports. Martin, how are you?
I'm good. Had an interesting day, been up early, a nice 8K walk this morning, a bit of work and a little bit like exercise, so it's all good.
Very good. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm looking forward to getting into it.
My pleasure.
Let's do it. Okay, so I want to go right back to the beginning to start with. So I'd love to know, what are your earliest memories of playing sport in general, since I know you also fenced and played cricket too in your youth? And when did you think you could pursue a career in rugby?
My earliest thoughts of sport, I think, that primary school, I went to a school in Islington. My mum was a school teacher. We lived in Hackney. Because she had a job in Islington, we used to travel on the 73 bus to Islington. I went to a school called Thornhill, and my earliest sporting memory must be losing a class cup in primary school. And I remember that was my first taste of defeat on a sporting field and intense emotion. I remember crying after losing it in the final, I think, against another class, and it was only a cup made out of cardboard, covered in silver foil paper. But at the time, it meant so much, and just that sense of losing and I wasn't losing that much. When I look back at it, I think I was losing a bit of cardboard and silver paper, but at the time, it meant so much. I remember my brother teasing me, and that was my earliest sporting memory, and I think that's why I hated losing so much, and tried to do it as little as possible and always give my best and try and win. But yeah, I went on to boarding school. I took up rugby. As I say, I was a keen footballer up until the age of 11. Then discovered the game of rugby at Wolverton Hall, which was an interesting establishment, a boarding school in a London Educational Authority's only boarding school at the time. My mum, being a school teacher, found out about this school, which had been going since the Second World War, and some of our classrooms were those sort of Nissen huts with corrugated iron, sort of semicircle things, which like bomb shelters, which I distinctly remember from school. But it was an amazing experience, being an inner city kid and then being exposed to the countryside and going to a grammar school. And I didn't pass my 11 plus, but my brother was very intelligent. Interesting story with my brother. He was 7 years old when I first met him. When I was 3, he lived through a civil war and couldn't speak English. We used to take the mick out of him, and I remember we used to tell him that you couldn't eat ice cream cones, so we would eat his ice cream cone. But by the time he was 11, he could speak English past his 11 plus. Myself, who lived in this country all my life, so I said, couldn't pass my 11 plus due to my dyslexia. But on the sibling rule, managed to get into Wolverton Hall. I learned the sport of rugby, and I always say to him, Chuck, not for you, I would never have been a rugby player because I wouldn't have known what rugby was. So I owe him a sense of gratitude, and the fact that he was 3 years older than me and better than me at everything. He was the first person that I tried to compete against, as I said earlier. I didn't like losing, and he never let me win. And I thank him for that, because if he did let me win, I wouldn't have probably tried so hard. A keen cricketer at school, as I say, fencing was probably I wouldn't say my first love, but the first sport I got any notoriety. And I was always, being the youngest of 3 children, I was always clamoring for to be seen and to be noticed. Both my older siblings were, my older sister was only a year older than me, but she was a keen sportsman as well, and I couldn't beat them in anything really. And I even remember to this day, the first time I beat my brother in a race, I must have been about 20 years old, or 22 years old, should I say. I'd played in Hong Kong Sevens. I'd gone on tour with Great Britain and played in iconic test match at the Sydney Football Stadium. I remember coming back to my mum's house in Hackney and just saying to my brother, like, we used to have this thing called the Street Olympics. We didn't have like training clubs and things to go to when I was young. We just had the street, and we used to have the race around the block. We used to race down the street. We used to do long jump on the pavement, and we used to call it, the Street Olympics. And I remember, as I say, as adults going down and saying, come and try outside now, I'm going to give you a race. And that was the first time I beat him. I'd been sort of training as a professional athlete for 2 years while he was a musician. So it wasn't really fair. But, to this day, that victory is still something that, I'll never forget. Mm. And obviously, I had some quite iconic races in my time. Some which one which I lost at the Parramatta Stadium against a guy called Lee Odenryan, who recently came out on a podcast and said that he cheated. I beat Adam Maffey, who was the European indoor 200-meter champion, and David Gridley was a European 400-meter finalist. But beating my brother in the street is my biggest victory, and I always take it back to the beginnings, and that's what sport is about. When you're a kid, you remember trying to play for the first 15 at school. I remember people like a guy called Cedric Carr and Adrian Thompson, who went on to play for England at Rugby Union, and who I played against when I was at Wigan in 1995, I think, or 6, I think it was, in the Middlesex Sevens, when Wigan were the first rugby league team to appear at Twickenham Stadium and took out Wasps in the final of the Middlesex Sevens, and Adrian was playing in that game. But I remember Adrian when I was at school as an 11-year-old, and him and a guy called Cedric Carr, who a lot of people won't know, is Tom Barndell's dad, who played at Roslyn Park with me as well. And these were guys who I looked up to as, we were playing in the first 15. And, one day I thought to myself, I only had aspirations of playing in the first 15, not to go on and do the things that I've done and score the number of tries and, MBEs and statues and Hall of Fames, but it's as you always think of the memories as a kid and just wanted to play for the first 15, and your aspirations then weren't, high and mighty and lofty. And you do those things and you reset goals and you go on. And that's what life is, for me. It's just about resetting your goals. And once you've achieved something, you've achieved it. And, you either plateau there, whatever that is, or you set new goals and go on. And, I always think back now and think to, what I wanted to do. I just wanted to do things like, play for Suffolk schools, which I didn't really sort of do until my later years, or even play for England schools, which I didn't get to. But, it's the triumphs and the failures in which make you, and you just keep moving on.
That's it, absolutely. Okay, so most famous for your time as a rugby league player, of course, which I'll get to. You also played Union at different stages of your career and made your name as a Sevens player in the mid-80s before being signed to Widnes in 87. Of course, different variations of the same sport, but entirely different disciplines, etc. So I'd love to know, how did your mental and physical preparation differ from league to Union to Sevens?
I was, known for my speed, my athleticism. Really didn't do much athletics in summer. I was more of a cricketer. So, after fencing, probably cricket was my main sport. Played for Essex Seconds. I think I captained Suffolk schools. So that was my main kind of summer sport. But, once I left sort of school and I realised that cricket was not for me. Played one second team game for for Essex. My claim to fame is I bowled Graham Gooch out of the nets. I still reminded of that to this day. As I say, played one second 11 game down at Hove against Sussex. Got hit for 6 off a half volley, and then realised maybe this is not the game for me. Got to room with Nasser Sain, who was also in the seconds at that time, and obviously went on to have a great career with England. But yeah, I think that summer, the next summer, before I went to play rugby league, I sort of was started to get a bit of notoriety, and that's when I just thought to myself, I didn't really have any training facilities or anything. I just thought to myself, I know what I'll do. I'll just go and join an athletics club. That would do really good. So I spent the summer of '87 prior to going to play rugby league, after I'd sort of played for the Barbars and played in Hong Kong, and I've ever Doug Lawton, the women's coach, said, he wanted me to turn up fit. So I just thought, I'll go and join an athletics club. Ran a few races, was competing with the 200 and 100 meter sprinters. Wasn't really winning or doing anything, but that's when I knew that if I could even just stay in the same frame with people who were sprinting was their first discipline. I knew if I could take that speed onto a rugby pitch with the ball skills I had, I could do something. I think that was a spot of genius, because I really did hit the ground running when I went to Widnes. But obviously I had a natural degree of pace, not that evident early on in my school career. I always remember that when I was about 13 or 14 years old, I didn't make my school sevens team, and old schoolmates now who connect with you and reconnect with you on social platforms always remind me that I was on the bench. So I wasn't a child prodigy or anything like that. I just worked hard at it. I was a late developer, and when I got to about 16 or 17, and I think when I was playing for Ipswich Rugby Club at the time, which was the local town to Wolverstone where we were in Suffolk, I just noticed I was getting quicker, and I was like, I'm leaving people. I literally was surprising myself. And I always knew early that, it's easy to surprise other people, but when you actually surprise yourself, that's when you know you're doing something. And as I say, so, I knew that being quick was going to be an asset for me, but I knew that you had to add things to that, because just being quick on a rugby pitch is not going to get you the number of tries that I scored. But I knew that speed was something that I had to develop and cultivate. I know in this modern era now, we have training camps, and sportsmen have so much support, from specialist coaches, whether that's wrestling coaches, speed coaches, skills coaches. But back then, you had to go and seek out these things for yourself as a sportsman. If you wanted to be great, you had to go to boxing gyms, to athletics tracks, and to seek out this specialist coaching as an individual. And that's something that I did learn early on, and bring it all together and learn from other players. Just have that mindset. And it's a lot easier for players now, because you do have it all encompassed in one place. But I had to go out and find that, and that was something that I think set me apart. I didn't drink. I watched what I ate. I was conscious of these things. All things now, which are, you go into a fresh environment. All your biometrics are tested. You've got GPS tracker systems. You've got so much now to produce that athlete. But back when I was playing in the mid '80s and early '90s, you didn't have that. But I was aware of the fact that speed was going to be a great asset for me, and so I was quite conscious about training as a sprinter, and looking after myself, and not drinking, and watch what I ate. And I think that did serve me in good stead, because a lot of sportsmen back then obviously probably drank a lot, and probably weren't so conscious of their diet and such things like that. But obviously playing at Wigan, they were ahead of their time as well. They had a physio called Dave Fever. We were doing ice baths a lot before a lot of other clubs, and we were having vitamin jab, B12 jabs, and taking creatine and supplements, and those things did set us apart. But I would say, it was my mindset, I think, more than anything. I had all these structures around me, and you had physios and people looking after your body. And I said, I went to masseurs and as I said, did a lot of training, specific athletics training with sprinters. But it all starts from mindset. No matter what you do in this world, it starts with thought. I remember being back at school and just having the simple thing that my life's plan was going to be, I'm going to be the best rugby player that I can be and see where that takes me. I remember that at 15 years old, and I remember that, and I'll never forget that thought. And even now, everything starts with a thought. Even you, to get me on here today, you must have thought, I'll get some things out. I think I'll get this out. How am I going to get? And then you that to an action, and then you create it. Whether that's everyone does that. Whether that's we want to have a family, you want to get married, you want to go on holiday, you want to do anything. It's that spark of creativity with that desire, and so that you could do it for little things, but that could be for big things. Everything that we is creating in this world. That's electric vehicles, nuclear power stations, and whatever. Obviously, people take it on, but it all starts from a thought. Someone thinks, "Oh, what about this? Or I can do this." Or that flash of inspiration, with desire, and then you don't know how you're going to do it. I didn't know how I was going to be, As I say, I was just trying to get to the first 15, but it keeps going. But I did actually remember thinking to myself, I want to be the best rugby player I can be, because rugby union was an amateur sport. I didn't know much about rugby league or whatever, or whether it's going to be a career for me. But I just thought to myself, if I become the best rugby player I can be, that's going to have a pretty good life. And as I say, I'm still on that journey now, and I've been retired longer than I played.
That mentality and that hard work obviously did pay off. And I think your time on the bench as a teenager was short-lived, because you were signed to Widnes, like I said, by coach Doug Lawton, after being spotted as showing exactly what you could do in the Middlesex Sevens, and joined the club ahead of the 87-88 season, where you won Player of the Year and enjoyed a career on the Vikings that saw you score 181 tries in 145 games across 4 seasons. So how did it feel to put pen to paper on your first pro contract, and how excited were you to prove yourself on rugby league's biggest stage?
Yeah, it was a strange situation how I got signed. It was just at the right time, as I burst on sort of that union scene after playing in the Hong Kong Sevens, played against the All Blacks in the semi-final. English rugby was a bit behind the Southern Hemisphere. Like the All Blacks, Australia, Samoa would always send international teams to the Hong Kong Sevens, but England didn't. So they just sent, English invitational sides, like the Penguins, the team that I played with. But, I always thought was, God, wow, I'm playing against the current All Black winger, a guy called Terry Wright, I think his name was, the Whippet they used to call him, and I did really well. So when I came back, that's when I had sort of a bit of a, furore around me, and it just all sort of really, that was the birth of my rugby career, really. And that's when Doug Lawton saw me, and I had a few wars against a guy called Andrew Harriman, who later went on to get capped by England, and I was part of the England team that went on to win the inaugural, I think, International World Sevens, which is the precursor to the World Sevens tournament now. So yeah, sort of things around you, things that in life happen, but as long as you're going on your path, of just moving forward in success, whatever it is that you're doing, whether you don't even need to be on the right path in life. You just need to be on a path going somewhere, because, what happens, you just change direction. I didn't know that I was going to play rugby league. It was just an opportunity that spurred out of nowhere. I was doing something. Somebody was watching me on TV. They had a thought in their head, they're going to get me. I was not on that path to play rugby league. My path was to play for England. I didn't make it in. I played in the final trial in '87. I think one of the final trials for the World Cup. I think I was in the final game. I think it was London versus the North, and I think there were 4 wingers on the pitch that day. I think it was myself. I think Harrison, who was the captain of England, I think at that time, Mark Bailey, and Rory Underwood, and I was the only one on that pitch that didn't go to the World Cup. But I think I scored 2 tries on that day against Rory Underwood. Back in the day, there was no social media, there was nothing. I just burst onto the scene. I don't know if you know the whole story of Chariots of Fire and how that song came about, being sung at Twickenham. And so I just sort of was really creating something. But as I said, there was no social media. There was, when I signed for Widnes, I've still got the newspaper on my wall. That was only one paper. Slightly different to when Jonathan Davis signed for Widnes a few years later. He was making headlines. I think I had one small paragraph or a couple of lines in the Daily Telegraph, and that was it for me. But I felt was the right decision at the time. Looking back, I think I probably made the right decision, because rugby union didn't go professional until 1995, 96, when, after all those cross-code games between Wigan and Bath, and Wigan playing and winning the Middlesex Seven. So I would have been 30, or I was 30 years old by then. So I was a different generation. And that's the thing about life. You are a product of your time. I'm just thankful and that, I managed to play in an era where I could become a professional. Obviously, the likes of, my younger teammates, the Andy Farrells, the Jason Robertsons, obviously went on to have professional careers in union. I played a bit of professional union, a year at Bedford and 1 year at Wasps in 2002, my last year as a professional. But most of the bulk of my career was when union was an amateur sport. And, I think I really wanted to become a professional sportsman, probably one of the reasons why I tried cricket when I left school. And so when that opportunity came along to sign for Widnes, initially I didn't jump at the chance, if I'm honest, and I'd knocked back Doug Lawton's first offer. And I remember walking back from Finsbury Park to where I lived in Upper Clapton, which is a few miles, but it just seemed like that. Because I was thinking, what have I done? Why did I knock back that offer? Because I remember going to me and saying, whatever he said and whatever he offered me, I was going to say no, because I wanted to play in the World Cup. I thought there's going to be another World Cup in 4 years' time. I'll definitely be playing in that. But, Dougie managed to still hammer away at me. He rang me up. I had all thought of it out of my head. I was just focusing on what I was going to do the next season. Was I going to move from Roslyn Park and go to Wasps, or was I going to go to take up an opportunity down at Bath? And then during that summer, it was a good 3 or 4 weeks later, he rang me up again, Dougie, and said, he's been to the board and he really was that keen to get me. Came back with an increased offer, and I just said, this is meant to be. And I said yes. And he said, yeah, just get fit. See you in September. And the rest, they say, is history.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then shortly after your time in Widnes and a couple of brief spells in Australia, John Money came calling and signed you to a world record £440,000 fee in January 92, adding you to a Wigan squad that just won its 12th league title. And then 3.5 years and 4 Challenge Cups, 5 league titles, 3 Regal trophies, 1 Lancashire Cup, and 186 tries in 159 games later. I think it's fair to say you've cemented your legacy as one of the greatest ever players in club history. So I'd love to know, with regards to the organisation, your coaches, teammates, and the club's fans, what do the Wigan Warriors mean to you?
Wigan Warriors mean to me just professionalism. It was a place that I was meant to be at, really. Even before I went to Wigan, it was funny, really, because I remember signing for Wigan. I knew nothing about rugby league, and I'd never been to Widnes. Barely seen any rugby league. I remember watching the Challenge Cup final. Must have been in that summer in '87, and I think it was when Wigan played Halifax, and I remember watching the game. There was so much colour and pomp and pageantry, and I thought to myself, God, that'd be amazing. It was very much similar to football. You was either it was very tribal. You were either black and white, or red and white, or blue and white, and so that's kind of like sparked up an idea for me. And I remember when I signed for Widnes, I remember asking somebody, Widnes, are they the ones who play in red and white? And then someone said, no, they play black and white. So I didn't even know Widnes, Wigan, Warrington. I didn't know which W I'd signed for. That's how knowledgeable I was. And I remember playing against Wigan, and they were so professional. I remember the first time I remember seeing the Wigan team come in. I was in awe because Doug Lawton just signed for Widnes a couple of weeks, played a couple of games. I remember we went to watch the first World Club Challenge when Wigan beat Manly Sea Eagles at Central Park in the first World Club Challenge game. And I remember it was like packed, absolutely packed, about 30,000 people plus in the stadium. You literally couldn't move. Nothing happened because nobody would have got out of there alive. It was that packed. And I remember standing next to Doug Lawton watching this game, thinking, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to be. And, I really tried to get to the Challenge Cup final with Widnes. And even though we were World Club champions ourselves in '89, beating the Canberra Raiders at Old Trafford, we'd won back-to-back league titles. We won so much, but we'd never got to the Challenge Cup final. And I'd been to Wembley a few times working for the BBC in Grandstand. And, it was just that lure. I thought, this is the big stage. This is what I was doing some incredible things at Widnes. I scored just as many tries at Widnes as I had at Wigan. arguably people might say that the greatest try I've ever scored is not the one I'm known for and have the statue for at Wembley, but probably a try I scored for Widnes against Wigan in the 89 championship decider. And I remember Maurice Lindsay saying to me, after I signed for Widnes, he said, after you scored that try, he said, I knew I had to get you to Wigan. And so when I got there, it just felt like it was home. And, I'd been on the journey and to get there. And, it was, no, don't get me wrong, I love Widnes and I'm thankful for the opportunity. And, I feel like, they were as good for me as I was for them. But once I got to Wigan, I felt that, this is where I was arrived. Don't get me wrong, it was a lot of pressure, signed for that world record fee. But yeah, as soon as I walked there, I felt instantly at home. The things that I did in that first season in 92, we went to Australia, we won the Nissan World Sevens, obviously the Challenge Cup final in the first year and scoring 10 tries against Leeds. Mm-hmm. So playing outside G Miles. So even though 93 wasn't that great year for me, but 92, what I achieved in that half a season, I think scoring 35 tries, it was literally, some of the stuff that I was doing, if I hadn't done it, people would have just said it couldn't have been done. I get a lot of sticks sometimes from a lot of fans, on social media, and they like to think that, you couldn't play, you couldn't do this. But as I say, when you score that amount of tries, you cannot be denied. I always had that desire in me that, I didn't think I was that great a player, but, if you do things that cannot be denied and score the tries that you've scored, create the memories and the highlight reels, then, it doesn't matter what anyone says, your body of work speaks for you. And I think that's what really happened for me at Wigan. And, it was a great team. People like Gene Miles, Sean Edwards, Franna Botica, Jason Robertson. God, I could just talk endlessly about the number of players that I played with at Wigan. And I was in the right place. And I just felt to myself, how can I not score tries when I'm playing in a team like this? There was a lot of pressure. And I put pressure on myself. Even people say that, I remember being on the team bus after we'd won at Wembley in 92. I'd won the Lance Todd, scored a couple of decent tries, and I still wasn't happy because I knew I hadn't produced that iconic moment. And then when I went back in 93 and got knocked out by an old friend of mine, Richie Ayres, who one of my Widnes teammates, it was ironic that I spent all that time trying to get to Wembley with Widnes, and then a year after I left, then they decided to get to Wembley, and I thought, God, I can't lose this game. And ended up getting knocked out in the second half, but still managed to get up, claw myself off the floor, because I knew that when you're in situations like that, they don't come around every day. When you're in situations where you can create a legacy, whether it's a Challenge Cup final, a World Cup final, a big game, they don't come round. You'll be lucky if you get one a year. You know what I mean? And I played in like 5 Challenge Cup finals, and it wasn't to the third one. That's why I was so taken aback after I scored that try. It was the range of emotion, because I actually achieved what I wanted to achieve. 2 things I wanted to achieve in a big occasion in the Challenge Cup final. One was to score length of the field try, which I did, and the second one was to score a hat-trick, which I didn't do. Robbie Paul went on to do that, become the first person to score a hat-trick in the Challenge Cup final in 96. Ironically, he was on the losing side, which wouldn't have been that great, I think. But, I did manage to achieve one of them, and that was to score that try. And I know at that time, that feeling that that when you achieve something so great, you feel blessed, and it is more than you. It's kind of like an out-of-body experience, because that to achieve something on that given day, whether it's an Olympic finals, an FA Cup finals, on that given day, is more than you, because you could do great things. I say, I've scored 10 tries in the game. I've scored 51 hat-tricks in my career as a rugby league player. Probably after I'm dead, none of those things are going to be remembered, because careers can be forgotten, but moments last forever. And if you get a chance as a sportsman to create your moment, be that a Pele goal or a Johnny Wilkerson drop goal, to create that moment that is going to be lasting. And there's a statue of me in that pose when I drop to my knees. When you create something like that, and that you've done it as a sportsman, you think, and it's more than you. It's to be blessed. You could have pulled a hamstring. I think it was a try that I scored on TikTok where I pull my, I think I on my 400 or something try, and I'm running down the wing at Central Park, and I'm 5 meters out, and I pull a hamstring. And even in that moment, I remember thinking to myself, I've ran this way, I don't care. I pulled a hamstring, I'm going to score that try, because I always think to myself, I always even think of legacy then. I was thinking to myself that, you run 90 meters and you don't score. It's like, what's the point of running? When I see, if I watch someone's highlight reel and they've run 90 meters and they get tackled, I'm thinking, what is the point of putting that on there? You're only putting that on there because you haven't got nothing else better to put on. So if all you've got to put on your highlight reel is running 90 meters and you get tackled, I mean, even I'm now, if I'm on YouTube, I'm watching someone's highlight, I just turn it off. I think, mate, that's not what you want. If you want to run 90 meters, you've got to do everything within your powers to score that try. And if not, then you've got to go and do it again. And that's the mentality that I had. If I hadn't done something, it just didn't count for me. I think you want to, because for me, it was creating beauty. It's like art. It's that meaning you're creating Van Gogh or Picasso's creating a piece of art. You don't just suddenly leave a bit off. You finish it, don't you? And that's what I was always thought to myself, you want to finish it. And yeah, you're not going to create anything, but if you can create that one piece, then it's because you're blessed, because everything has come together. Someone who, was 2 meters to the left, if they were 2 meters to the right, maybe they would have tackled you, because there's lots of times in games where I've, almost scored, or I nearly did this, or people remember they got you that day. But, for everything to come together on that sunny day in front of 80,000 people. And that's another thing, if I'd have scored those tries through COVID, I don't think they'd be remembered, because, I feel sorry for sportsmen who are creating magic now, because it's not quite the same without that live audience. Imagine if you create something that's of such beauty and there's no roar, there's no excitement, there's no passion, there's no feedback. I'd be mortified. You know what I mean? And just little things like that. And that's why you've got to be so blessed and thankful. There's so many sportsmen who have, not created things because they've died in wars. You know what I mean? They've had to, during the wars, there's so many sportsmen who have lost their lives, who didn't go on to create things, or would have given birth to sportsmen who have gone on to create things. So that's why I say you feel so blessed to be in this, to be living in that moment. And it meant so much to me. And when I talk to people now, they say, like, what you would, and the moment, all those thoughts and emotions and stuff are going through you, and it's like you're not like consciously think of it, but your subconscious is it, and everything that you've gone through before, the trials, the tribulations, the coming back from injuries, all those times you're putting all that hard work in on a cold morning, getting out of bed and everything, all of it is for that. And when you feel that, you think, yes, for that one moment of pure beauty, which is going to last forever. And, and every time I go to Wembley, I see that statue, it brings back all those memories, and I can tell that story, and, you attach that story to that, and that's, you've created something, and it gives, some great meaning to what you've achieved on this planet. But on the other hand, you also want to go and have fun with your mates and go on lads' holiday. So it's all about a balance, because, you could have too much of that. And then, I think round about, towards the end of my career, I was starting to think to myself, so what if you score another try, or you earn more money, or you do? I think you've got to get that balance in life. So you want to go and have fun and do other things. But yeah, you're always going to miss your achievements, and nothing is going to ever match that moment. And I always tell my kids, you being born was nice, but when I was on my knees in front of 80 screaming thousand people, some screaming for you, some screaming against you, to be in that situation, in that moment, if your life has got a highlight, that is going to be the pinnacle of it, and nothing else. You can't live up there, because that is, in the ethers, it's not a good place to stay too long. But it's fleeting. But I'm glad I got there.
Yeah, that is a special try. I never tire of watching that over and over again. Okay, so your level of play throughout your career not only led to great success at club level, of course, but also on the international stage too. You won 5 England caps, scoring 8 tries, and then 33 Great Britain caps, touching down over the try line a further 26 times. So what did it mean to you to put on that shirt and travel the world representing your country on over 30 occasions?
It meant a lot, to represent your country at anything. is a great honour, something that fills you with pride. When you're younger, you aspire. You didn't think you'll get to achieve these things. You shop for these things because you never know where it's gonna land. But it's great responsibility. It's great honour. To shed blood on the rugby field, playing against Australia as well. Our foes. I think if you represent Great Britain or England against Australia or Germany, that I think those two countries, and I don't know why. I don't know. There's something about competing against Australia and Germany, and thankfully I've managed to do both. Actually played for the England celebrity team against Germany. It was in the same game that Boris Johnson came to national notoriety, because I think it was one of the German players, Franz Beckenbauer, I think it was. He rugby tackled him on the pitch. That Boris is going to be known for is obviously tackling that little Asian boy in Japan, Japanese boy in Japan, and also on the rugby pitch on the football pitch at the Majeski Stadium. And I think I just come back from Spain and I played in that game. And I think if you look on YouTube, you'll see Boris. And I think I was on the bench and I was just coming on and I sort of gave him a pat on the back. That's my claim to fame. I patted the future Prime Minister on the back when he tackled the Germans. So I can't remember when we won that game or lost that game. But yeah, I've got to compete against Germany and Australia. So yeah, it's quite funny. But yeah, to compete in Australia against Australia and take the stick that you take from the Australian press and the public. It was tough, but yeah, we had some great wins on Australian soil, notably in Sydney in '88, when we won the third test and the second test in Melbourne in '92, and obviously Wigan, and obviously I got to play in the NRL, the Australian competition for Eastern Suburbs and St George as well. So yeah, I enjoyed my days in Australia. I got the chance to potentially stay out there in '91, but I always knew that coming back to playing for Wigan was the right choice for me. I didn't want to do a Sam Burgess or James Graham and go out and have a career out there, because I always knew that legacy is a great thing, and I just felt to myself I wanted to play here, create a lasting legacy on these shores, and I think that was definitely the right decision. Obviously I had, as I say, 3 sort of stints out in Australia with clubs, but I'm glad I played the majority of my rugby in England.
Very nice. Okay, so I've been to Twickenham to watch England play 2 times when I was a kid, and have vivid memories of singing Swing Low Sweet Chariot, but little did I know until recently that song is now attributed to you. There's footage from the '87 Middlesex Sevens with you on the pitch where that song can be clearly heard from the crowd. So how does it feel to have that song as a part of your legacy too, as well as that incredible nickname?
Yes, it was kind of funny. Colin Welland, who wrote the screenplay to Chariots of Fire, was a big fan of mine and actually wrote the foreword to my autobiography, which came out in '97, I think it was. And yeah, he was apparently at Twickenham that day in '87 and was part of the crowd who was singing that song. I didn't even know my nickname was Chariots until I started playing rugby league. And I think the first person ever to call me to my face was Ian Botham, ironically, and when I was doing one of my early episodes of Question Sport when he was my captain. And as I say, I wasn't Floyd Mayweather, so I didn't get to give myself the nickname. People would say, "How did you get the nickname Chariots?" And I didn't give myself a nickname because my name actually was Offiah, and anyone who knows me from my school days knows me as Martin Offiah. It was only when I started to play rugby, and people used to see my name written down, and apparently in rugby crowds used to say, "Oh, he's Martin Offiah." So I was christened Martin Offiah, and then I was also christened Chariots by the rugby crowds at Roslyn Park and at Twickenham, and it's something that followed me to rugby league. But I'd say when people were singing that, I was oblivious to that song, and it was only recently when I was contacted by the RFU Museum. I think it was prior to England's game against Wales. I think it was last year during the Six Nations. And that was the first time I knew anything about it. It was news to me. Yeah, I was quite proud to think that obviously I'm part of rugby league folklore. So to didn't have that much of a career in senior rugby union. So when I was found out that the song was attributed to me, I was proud of it. Obviously, I know about the history of the song, and I'm always something that you can see the negatives and the positives as anything. Obviously, there's a lot of negativity around the history of the country of England, which I'm aware of, with slavery and the song. But, and there's a lot of negativity in my history. There's some of the things I had to endure on the rugby pitch as well. But, I saw that as I took the positive from it, and I spurred it and used it as positive energy to spur me on to achieve. And, I think the song Swing Low, we can look at it negatively or we can look at it positively. And I chose to look at it positively. Whether crowds will sing it again when crowds return to Twickenham after the pandemic, we'll have to see. It'd be interesting to be in the stadium the next time that Twickenham is full, and I'll just look around. I don't know whether England fans will sing it or not. It's not to do with me. It's to do with the fabric of rugby in this country. And as I say, we just have to wait for that time, and we'll see whether it will be sung.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so of course your honours aren't limited to simply trophies you won for particular games and seasons you were victorious in, but in the 1997 New Year honours you were awarded an MBE for your services to rugby football, and in 2016 you were immortalised in a bronze statue at Wembley Stadium alongside other greats Eric Ashton, Billy Boston, Alex Murphy and Gus Risman. Talking on the statue, you said it was the pinnacle of your career without a doubt. So what do both of those achievements mean to you, having been retired for nearly 20 years?
They mean a lot. Because you can, receive a lot of awards, which are about your sport. Obviously, Man of Steel awards, try scoring charts in rugby league. I think the record 7 times. But when you get accolades beyond your sport, from wider society, and that's when you really know that you've done something. To obviously even the Hall of Fame still was within your sport, but when you get awarded MBEs. And, I'm part of a statue. These are things that, money can't buy. And just, you wouldn't even have thought it. Even when you want to become great at your sport, you're pretty blinkered. You want to achieve the most. You want to win World Cups. You want to score tries. You want to be the greatest of all time within your sport. But you have no thought or recognition beyond your sport, whether society or the country is going to recognise your exploits. And when that happens, it's a great honour. Something that you're truly proud of, to be transcendent beyond your sport and recognised by the wider society, and to be on that statue. And I have a funny story, because one of the other subjects on the statue, Alex Murphy, is an interesting character. He was obviously a great player, which is why he's duly on the statue. But he was a successful coach as well. But also a critic, a media critic, a pundit, and was, how can I say it best? Like to be very controversial. I wouldn't quite say he's the Katie Hopkins of rugby league, but he was, I think Murph the Mouth, I think they used to call him back in the day, and used to write in the Daily Mirror. And I think if you go to my Instagram page and scroll down, you'll see a picture of a newspaper article, which I woke up to, I think, on the day of the 94 Challenge Cup final. And it was Murphy basically saying that I was finished and I was the best of a bad bunch. And I know you had to, it was a little bit clickbait. And, back in those times, he was, I don't know, I haven't really sort of asked him really why he wrote the story or whatever. So, basically saying that I was, as I said, the best of a bad bunch and I wasn't very good and this. And I think I touched on earlier that I had a great sort of 92 half season, but 93 wasn't the best season for me, and I received a lot of stick and people saying I wasn't worth the money, and Sean Edwards helped me get through a pretty dark time in my career, because when you're retired everyone loves you and people only talk about the good things that you've done. But life is not always like that. You have to come through things, you have to endure things, you have to be consistent, you have to persevere through the tough times, and you're never going to have a whole career spanning 15 years. It's all going to be, sweetness and light. But leading up to that Challenge Cup final, as I say, I didn't have the best of times, and waking up to that story, and I just thought to myself, wow, all the things I'd achieved in my career, all that stuff that I'd done, that I still was waking up to people doubting you and saying that you couldn't do this and you weren't all that great. And so every time I go to Wembley, I see that statue, I think to myself, you know, the guy to the right of me is is one of the reasons why I'm on this statue, because, you know, I woke up and I thought to myself, I felt good, and I thought to myself, I'm going to create something today that's going to stand the test of time. Because, you know, sometimes you do have that feeling that, you know, you do feel good, you know, sometimes you don't feel so great on the morning of the game, but I had a sneaky feeling that I was going to do something that day, and, you know, it turned out to be true. And not a lot of people know I did have, as we went onto the field, as you do before a big game at Wembley, you know, you're in your suits, and I do remember having that article. I didn't rip it up. I just folded it up and I put it in my blazer. And as I was walking around the stadium, I had that in my coat pocket. And you know, I've still kept that to this day. Huh. And I took a picture of it recently and put it in. I just felt I was going through the loft for something. I've just managed to find it. And you know, put it on Instagram, and so if you go to my Instagram page, you'll see it. And I always thought to myself, it was weird, because it was a whole big poster sort of thing. You know, back in the days when people used to take cutters out of newspapers, and I thought, if somebody wants a poster of me, they don't want finished across the top of it. So it was, it's one of those things that will stick out to me. And you know, as again, some people say, you know, I might have thought that could have crushed them, but I used it as motivation. I carried it close to me all that day. And, you know, I'm not going to say it's the reason, you know, why I did that try. There's lots of things, but that's part of it, you know, it's that extra bit. Because if anyone has seen that try, you know, knows me, you know, we was even at that game, you know, we were under a lot of pressure. That game lead were really giving it to us. And, you know, I took the ball under my sticks. And it was, you know, it was not the kind of run that I was known for. It was more something that Jason Robson would do, who didn't get selected in that game, Vainga Tugalamala. The All Black winger who had been recently signed by Wigan, and there was a lot of pressure on me at that time, because, as I say, there was Jason Robson, there was Vainga Tugalamala, who was an All Black winger, and me. And you know, as 3 into 2 doesn't always go. Unfortunately, you know, Jason missed out that day, but a year later had his day in the sun, you know, going on to win the Lance Todd the year after. But 94 was my year. And yes, and part of it was due to the motivation provided to me by Alex Murphy, who sits on the statue alongside me forever. So anytime I go to Wembley, I do have a wry smile, and people don't really understand the stories behind the statue. I think Billy Boston, you know, a great player. I think the only person alive now who has scored more tries than me. I said, it's not often I'm in a room with someone who scored more tries than me. So every time I'm in a room with Billy Boston, I must pay homage to him and go up to him and shake his hand and tell him that. But yeah, it's great to be honoured, to, you know, the stories that go behind, you know, that statue, and everyone who's on it has created something for rugby league. And yeah, I'm probably the nearest to the modern game.
Yeah, Martin, I want to some quick fire questions. You ready?
Yep.
Let's do it. Okay, favourite takeaway food?
Thai.
Thai, nice choice. Okay, dogs or cats?
Yeah, cat. I've got a cat, Jibby, who I've had since 2003. So she's around here somewhere. She's licking her paws on the sofa over there. So she would be beside herself. Even though I do like dogs, but I think cats are just a lot easier to look after.
Yeah. Okay. Favourite music artist?
God, I've got so many. My favourite bands is a toss-up between Oasis and Take That. My favourite artist, oh God, that's a tough one. I'm going to say Dina Vass, just because anyone who knows me, I'm into house music, and my favourite song of all time is a song called Waiting for You, sung by Dina Vass. I'm going to say Dina Vass.
Nice. Okay, favourite sports movie?
That's going to be a quick fire question. That's a tough one. Oh God. I don't know about movie, but I know that the Michael Jordan documentary. Yes, I loved watching that. But I'm just thinking movies of this. I don't want to say something corny like The Waterboy, but I just love all sports movies. Some of them do make me cry. But I'm going to say Chariots of Fire. I'm going to say Chariots of Fire.
There it is. Fantastic. As a player well known for his speed on the pitch and having done races against other players throughout your career, can you tell us your fastest ever 100-metre time?
My fastest 100-metre time is 10.8, which wasn't recorded in a race. It was just a training session, a Great Britain training session that I did while I was at Widnes, and they clocked me at 10.8 or 10.88 it was, yeah, which is not particularly fast for a sprinter, but when you can travel at those kind of speeds with a ball on your arm on the pitch, then you're doing all right.
Absolutely. Okay, in 1992 against Leeds, you scored 10 tries in a single game in a 74-6 win. How long do you think it will be until another Wigan player breaks that record, if ever?
It's never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, a lot of the things I achieved, if I hadn't done them, people would say they could never be done. So it's never going to happen again. Sean Edwards has done, I must point out as well, but he did against Swinton. But in this modern world of top-class sport, it's not going to happen again.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Like that.
Okay, so in keeping with the show's scoring system, how well would you rank your performance on the first series of Strictly Come Dancing on a scale of 1 to 10?
7.
I love it. Fourth place, right?
Yeah, I did all right, mate. I did all right.
You did, showing off that footwork. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, of all the game shows you've been on, which did you most enjoy?
Which did I most enjoy? I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy Total Wipeout or Splash. I'm going to say Question of Sport. Even though getting my home question wrong was the bane of my life. And I remember to this day, it was Quentin Pongya, and I'm never going to forget that name because he's not even with us now, God rest his soul. But yeah, that just stumped me. That question, I couldn't get it.
Personally, I loved your appearance on Splash, but that's just me.
No, I've still got them shorts as well.
Fantastic. Okay, and finally, for you personally, who's your favourite rugby player of all time?
It's a toss-up between Gareth Edwards and Phil Bennett. But if you had to stick me to one, I'll say Phil Bennett, because he was like the person that I used to pretend to be at school. If you go on YouTube and see some of his highlights, Phil Bennett, he had a fantastic sidestep. I think it's been voted the best try of all time, either code. Gareth Edwards' try for the Barbars in 71 against the All Blacks. And Phil Bennett starts off with some brilliant sidesteps. And I used to remember, I couldn't sidestep. I mean, Jonathan Davis, who I played with, he had a fantastic sidestep. I had to manufacture my sidestep. I would have loved to have been able to sidestep like Phil Bennett, and I tried to be him.
There you go. There it is. Martin, thank you so much for your time today and for being on my show. It's a true honour for me. Where can people find you on social media? Check out anything else you're involved in.
Yeah, well, you can chat to me on social media, on Instagram at Martin Chariots. Offiah. I'm on LinkedIn. If you need to talk about, we haven't, touched on the work I'm doing now with Connected Curb and EV charging and sustainability. Catch me on LinkedIn. Either go through Connected Curb or just put my name into any search engine and something's going to come up.
Fantastic. I'll make sure to leave all your links, especially with all the Connected Curb stuff you're doing, all of that kind of stuff. I'll put it in the description below so people can check it out. Martin, once again, thank you so much and have a fantastic day.
Pleasure.
And there he goes, the fantastic Martin Chariots Offiah MBE. Some incredible stories there from his youth as an aspiring sportsman who adopted the right mentality and put in all the hard work behind the scenes to achieve what he did. Make sure to go and check out Martin across his social media accounts, as well as his innovative Connected Curb business. All the links you need are in the description of this episode. I've got many more great guests coming very soon, so stay tuned right here on Seb Talks Sports. And to take us out as usual, here's another brilliant track by All-Pro New York Giants running back, turned music creator and friend of the show, David Wilson. Catch you soon, guys.